Okay, get this. What if I told you that in some of the most ancient texts, the name we've come to associate with pure evil is the exact same name used for pure good? It sounds impossible, right? Well, let's dive into the absolutely wild history of one single, powerful symbol.
I mean, we all know the story of Lucifer, right? The stunningly beautiful angel who gets a little too big for his britches, rebels against God, and is cast out of heaven to become the devil. It's a foundational story in Western culture, really. It's the story about pride, rebellion, and where evil comes from.
But what if that's not actually his name? And this, right here, is where the story we think we know just completely starts to fall apart. See, a name holds so much power, and the real history behind this one name, well, it's way more complicated than just good versus evil.
In fact, and this is a big one, the word Lucifer only shows up once in the entire King James Bible. So you've got to ask yourself, right? How did one single mention, just one, come to define the ultimate baddie? How did this one word get completely fused with the idea of the Prince of Darkness? Yep, just once. I mean, think about it. Out of hundreds of thousands of words, it appears one single time. That alone should make you go, what's really going on here? Okay, so let's do a little detective work. Let's trace this word all the way back to where it really came from. Because, you see, before it was the name of a demon, it was the name of something, well, something totally different. It actually wasn't a name at all. It was just a description. The word Lucifer comes from two Latin words, lux, meaning light, and fer, meaning to bring or to carry. So its literal meaning is just light bringer. I mean, that's a pretty far cry from the Prince of Darkness, when you say. So originally, Lucifer was simply what the Romans called the planet Venus when you'd see it in the morning sky. You know, that super bright star that shows up right before the sun rises? It was this beautiful, powerful symbol of a new day coming. It was the original shining one. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can see how this one idea traveled through different languages. It's like a game of historical telephone. In the original Hebrew, the term was Hallel ben Shakar, shining one, son of the dawn. Then, when that was translated into Greek, it became phosphorus, which also just means light bringer. And finally, St. Jerome, translating it into Latin, used the direct equivalent, Lucifer. At every single step, it's a description, a title, not a personal name. And here it is. This is the verse, the one and only time the word Lucifer appears in the King James Bible. This is the ground zero for the entire myth. But the big question is, who was Isaiah actually talking about here? And here's the massive twist. The original passage, it had absolutely nothing to do with a fallen angel. It was a poetic takedown, a taunt, aimed at a human king, the king of Babylon. The prophet was using the morning star as a metaphor. You know, it shines so brightly for a moment, but then it falls from the sky as the sun comes up. It was a really clever way of mocking the king's pride. So you can see how a metaphor slowly became a myth over hundreds and hundreds of years. What started as a political jab at a Babylonian king around 600 BCE got reinterpreted by early church fathers. They were trying to explain where evil came from, and this verse seemed to fit. Then, when the Latin Vulgate used the word Lucifer, and especially when the King James Version capitalized it in 1611, that was it. The deal was sealed. A poetic description was officially turned into a proper name for the devil. All right, now we get to the most mind-bending part of this whole story. Because as it turns out, that prideful king of Babylon isn't the only one in the Bible who gets called the morning star. So, we've got this verse, right? Lucifer, son of the morning, used to describe a prideful king who falls. Okay, lock that in your memory for a second. Because, now listen to this, all the way at the end of the Bible, in the book of Revelation, Jesus himself says, I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. He gives himself the exact same title. This is the core of the whole paradox. And it's not just a weird coincidence of translation either. If you look at the Latin Vulgate, which was the official Bible for 1,000 years, it uses the exact same Latin word, Lucifer, in both places. In Isaiah, Lucifer is the fallen king, but in the book of 2 Peter, Lucifer is used to describe the dawning of Christ in a believer's heart. Same word, completely opposite meanings. And if you need more proof that the word wasn't always evil, get this. There was a celebrated 4th century bishop, a guy who fought against heresy and was later made a saint, and his name was Lucifer.
Saint Lucifer of Cagliari. I'm not kidding. It just shows that back then the name simply meant what it meant, Lightbringer. Okay, so with this crazy paradox in mind, things are already pretty strange. But some early Christian groups, known as the Gnostics, took this idea and ran with it, completely turning the traditional story on its head. They looked at the Garden of Eden story and saw something completely different. In the traditional view, the serpent is the bad guy, right? He tricks humanity into sinning. But for some Gnostics, the serpent was the hero. They believed the God who created the physical world was actually a lesser, malicious being, and the serpent was a messenger from the true, higher God, sent to free humanity.
So in their version, the serpent was the true light bringer. He wasn't tempting Adam and Eve to sin. He was offering them Gnosis. That's Greek for knowledge. He was giving them the secret knowledge they needed to wake up, realize their own divinity, and escape the ignorance that the lesser God wanted to keep them in.
And this idea of the Lightbringer as a complex, even rebellious figure didn't stop with the Gnostics. It kept evolving, especially in more modern esoteric and philosophical traditions. You can really see here how one symbol can be stretched to mean totally different things. For Orthodox Christianity, it's pretty clear-cut. Jesus is the true light, Satan is the false light. Simple. But for the Gnostics, the Lightbringer was the one who brought forbidden knowledge. Fast forward to someone like Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophists, and Lucifer becomes a symbol of human intellect and reason rebelling against dogma. And then in Jungian psychology, he represents the divine shadow, the necessary dark side of God that you have to confront to become a whole person. So what this all boils down to is that the morning star isn't really a single person or being. It's a powerful and really flexible archetype. It's a symbol for the dawn of some kind of illumination, some kind of new light. And what that light represents? Well, it completely depends on who's telling the story. It can be seen as the light of prideful rebellion, or it can be the light of divine salvation. It could be the light of secret mystical knowledge, or even just the light of human reason and science. So that leaves us with the big central question, doesn't it? If the very same symbol can represent divine grace and intellectual rebellion, are those two things really opposites? Or are they maybe just two different sides of the same light, both of them necessary for the human journey? That's the morning star paradox, a simple mistranslation that reveals our deepest questions about light, knowledge, and power.